Hello and welcome to the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. I'm your host, Chris Colmer, founder of Beginner Orchestra and the MTIIS organization. Now, the aim of this podcast, of course, is to explore what is happening in and around music education in the international school world. And I speak to music educators and music education resource providers to help draw our community together and find connection. So today we are focusing on musical theatre in the international school context, and we're going to explore how Music Theatre International, or MTI, is working with and supporting international schools around the world. Now, like many of you, my experience with MTI started when I began purchasing licenses and show kits for my school musicals, and I was blown away by the quality of the resources and the way they truly supported our musical theatre program. I then attended the Broadway Teachers Workshop in New York in 2017, which I can safely say was one of the most impactful professional development experiences I've ever had. So today I'm super lucky to be joined by John Prignano, the Chief Operating Officer and Director of Development and Education at MTI. And John is based in New York and has been a strong advocate for providing teachers and schools with the resources and the support to build new arts programs and sustain existing ones. As a representative of MTI, John has been the recipient of a number of awards in the field of theatre education. John is an absolutely fantastic human and he's wholeheartedly dedicated to musical theatre education. And I'm so happy to be able to speak with him today. John, thanks for joining me on the show.
Hey, Chris, I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
Let's start a little bit, John, with exploring your role at MTI. And maybe you can take us through how you got involved in the organization to begin with.
Sure. Currently I am as you mentioned, the COO and Director of Education and Development. One of my primary jobs is, running the day-to-day operations of the company and making sure that we are focusing on what our mission is, which is, enabling people to do musical theater. My other part of my job is development, which deals with all the development in the education market, working on all the junior shows and doing those edits and working with the authors and getting all that stuff done and working on the one-act editions, working on all of our town halls that we're doing, which, are based around education. And one of the biggest part of my job that I absolutely love is all of the, as we're developing new titles and new shows and, as a perfect example is Mean Girls. We just released Mean Girls high school version. And that was a fun project to work on because, in the past, we've done school editions where we've taken shows and we've edited them based on what educators have told us, and we provided an edited script and a new version of the show. What we're doing with Mean Girls is we're providing everyone with the exact same script, but then we have a whole set of approved changes for the show so that depending on your community, what you feel comfortable with, what you think can work, what you think don't work, you can kind of mold the show into what works for you and your community. And the best part about all of that is, I get to go out and see these pilots. I get to, experience these kids doing it for the first time and watching them explore those characters and how they relate to them and all of that. And that is just my joy in my job. And I love my job. It's a joyful job. Working with young adults is always joyful.
It sounds like it's quite a hands-on job. Like it's not COO, Director of Development and Education, and you're sitting in an office.
No, I'm traveling a lot. As a matter of fact, I just got back from Australia and New Zealand. I was there for the Junior Theatre Festival in Newcastle, and then I was there for the Junior Theatre Festival in Auckland. And yeah, that's what I get to do. I've been at MTI I started at MTI in 1996, and I was actually the receptionist. I answered phones for about a year, and then I started to move into different positions, and I just kept growing. Freddie Gershon, who owns MTI, he is someone who I look up to highly. He always felt he wanted to, grow from within the company. And he always gave everyone a chance to show what they can do, what more they can do, how much more they wanted to do. And he just let me go and kind of explore. And I just kept going, well, I think I can do this and I think I can do that, and ended up where I did.
That's great. I love that. Starting off as the receptionist, working your way up. Amazing.
Yeah, it's kind of like how to succeed in real life.
Brilliant. Let's just lay this out for the listeners, because I gave a little bit of context in the introduction about what Music Theatre International offer, but could you just describe for us what are the main products, concepts, and ideas that MTI offer to music educators or theatre educators?
Sure. To start out, I'll just kind of give you a little overview of who MTI is and what our responsibilities are. Everyone refers to MTI as owning all the shows that are in our catalog. We don't own them. We represent the author's interests. Our job is to make sure that the shows that are being performed, that we're collecting the appropriate royalties for the authors. It's also, our job is also to make sure that we're licensing the correct version of the show. There are many shows that have many different versions. There's only one licensable version, and that's the version that the authors want out there. So that's the one we license. So, we're a representative for the authors. We don't own any of the shows, but we represent them all. And it is our job to make sure that the community is doing the shows the way the authors want them to be done. Some of the products we offer, our standard set is when you get a license from MTI, you get the standard set. You get the libretto vocal book, you get the scripts and the scores. And then there are resources that go along with that. And, these are for full-length titles where, we have something called a rehearse score, and we have something called performance accompaniment recordings. We have show posters. We have, Production Pro, which is a digital version of the script and score. We have multiple resources because we felt, our job, again, is to enable as many people as possible to do a show. And how do we do that? We help take away the barriers. We do that from the beginning of the process, where you can call in and always speak to someone. We always have a representative available to speak to if you have questions, all the way through the process where we offer, the posters and the logo packs and the T-shirts and all of that stuff that helps you produce your show easier and better. We also have our junior and kids versions of the shows where we take full-length titles, kind of like Mean Girls or Legally Blonde or Into the Woods or Seussical. And what we do is we edit it down to an hour so that it's appropriate for elementary or middle school age kids to perform. And that is, a big part of our education market, because prior to the introduction of Broadway Junior, middle and elementary schools had a hard time doing shows. A 2.5-hour show for middle school is really tough. So the idea of introducing 60 minutes and making sure that there's edits in there and that it's appropriate for young adults, but that the keys are also appropriate for young adults. That was another big part of Broadway Junior, is just taking a show and editing it down is easy, but then figuring out the keys, because a lot of those kids in middle school have unchanged voices and need to understand that, it's just not changing the octave.
So I remember purchasing or licensing the junior shows, and I thought they were amazing because for exactly that reason, a 2.5-hour show, not possible or very difficult for primary, elementary students to do. So that's really important for us to sort of to know the different shows that you guys offer. So you said the junior, and then what's the kids? So the kids is shorter again, right?
Kids fall under the Broadway junior umbrella, but these are 30 minutes long. These are really for the younger kids, for someone who's, we get a lot of people say, I want to do a musical in my school, but I'm the only person. I don't have the support. I really don't have a budget. I always say, start with a 30-minute musical. Start with one of the kids' versions. It's just so much easier to, it's less rehearsal time, less props, everything is just reduced down. And it gives you an opportunity to see what you're getting yourself into, A, and B, and it's slightly more manageable. So it's a great way to get started. Then, graduate to one of the junior shows where they're an hour long. And remember, the junior shows are all self-contained. You get the script, you get the director's score, you get an actual director's guide. In the director's guide is geared for novice directors or experienced directors. It has information for everyone in there. It talks about how do you set up a rehearsal schedule? How do you bring people, how do you get people to help you? If someone says, okay, I want to do the costumes, what is their job? All of that stuff is outlined in our director's guide. We also have what everyone loves is our accompaniment and guide vocal CDs.
Yeah.
These are fully orchestrated with an orchestra. These are recordings. And then we have the guide vocal guides, which are young adults singing on top of those tracks so that your kids can actually hear young kids singing the parts as opposed to you as an adult singing the part. And people love that. I think that's the biggest, when we ask people what is the most important part of the show kit, everyone points to the guide vocal and accompaniment tracks because they just make everyone's life so much easier. And think about it. I mean, getting a full orchestra for middle school is tough. There are a lot of people out there who have that ability, and that's great. And we work with them and we encourage them to keep doing that. But there are those schools that just don't have the ability to bring in an orchestra. So this solves that problem for them.
Yeah. I remember using the guide vocal tracks. I would share those with the students, and that was their practice. Like they would just be listening, constantly listening, and then they would come to rehearsal without the guide track, sing along, and it would just be so familiar to them. And they get to the show and it's the same track. And because they're such high quality tracks, you put them through a sound system in a theater and it sounds brilliant. Like it could be almost a pit orchestra playing along. It's not this sort of
it is a pit orchestra. I mean, we use an actual live orchestra. So, it's the same sounds. We're just capturing them and then putting them onto a CD. I do this little trick where I sometimes direct and work with some schools in the area, and I'll use the junior shows and I'll stage a number with the guide vocal tracks, and I'll just play it over and over. The kids sing along with it, and then at some point, instead, I switch to just the accompaniment track. And the funny thing about it is, we'll run through the number again, and I'll just look at the kids and say, "Did anything feel different?" And they'll be like, "Well, I felt like I was off on this, or so and so wasn't there." And I'm like, "No. You just learned the song. You sang the song without even having to learn it because you just learned it from listening to the tracks over and over again." It's a little trick I use. I mean, you still need, and this, you still need a music director. You still need someone to kind of shape it and actually, make sure the right notes are being sung. But there's a level of learning that just happens by listening to those tracks that gets your students there 50% quicker than just learning it from a piano part.
Yeah. So if an international school music teacher is struggling a little bit, they really want to start a musical theater program. One of the things that international school music teachers often struggle with is territory and licensing and sort of copyright things. Like how do I get the license in, if I'm in the Middle East or if I'm in Asia or if I'm in South America? So how does an international school teacher kind of go about that? And is there any restrictions on territory and where these shows can be produced?
Yeah, there are restrictions on a lot of our shows. There's some shows that we only have North American rights to. There are some shows that we have specific rights to. So, my biggest piece of advice is before you settle on a show, you may know the show you want to do, but before you put it out there and you tell everyone you're doing it, and you have a conversation with the kids, make sure you check with the licensing company that the show is available for you to do in your territory, if the show is available for you to do, period. Because sometimes shows, authors will pull a show because they want to work on it or something like that. Always ask. The other piece of advice I give people is no matter how well you think you know a show, no matter even if you've done it before, always get a perusal of the script and read through it. I can't tell you how many times people go, oh, I know that show inside and out. I've done it so many times. And then they get the script and go, oh, I forgot that was in there. I can't do that in my school. Always ask first if the show is available, and always read the script before you make your final decision, because we forget, we're humans. We remember the good things and forget about the other stuff. The nice thing about MTI, we have one point of contact for all of our international schools. His name is Adam Dermer. His email is very simple. It's Adam D, ADAMD. No, how do you spell Adam? ADAMD at mtishows.com. I don't know why I was adding another D. I thought there was two D's in there. Adam doesn't end in D. So it's Adam Dermer, ADAMD at mtishows.com. He's the single point person for all of our international schools. He knows all the answers, and if he doesn't know them, he knows where to find them. He will be your best friend and your go-to person when you have any questions about any shows in the MTI catalog.
Brilliant. So we'll put that in the show notes, the email address there, so people can just grab that easily. That's fantastic. A follow-up question to that: the perusal, that's freely available when you inquire, right? So you make an inquiry, and if the show's available, the perusal comes kind of free to you to look at, right?
Yeah, but that doesn't mean the show is available in your territory.
Sure.
We will, but perusals are available for every show, but you still have to find out if that show is available in your territory before you make a decision. For international schools specifically, we have digital versions of our perusals where we can send them to you digitally and you can read them. So you don't have to worry about getting shipped all over the world. It's just the digital access to it.
Cool. Okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Broadway Teachers Workshop, if that's okay, because I mentioned that in the intro. And for international school music teachers, there's often a difficulty in finding quality professional development for music educators. We often get lots of other professional development offers, but music education, we have to search far and wide. So Broadway Teachers Workshop, let's discuss that a little bit. What is it about? What happens at the workshop? And I think there's an online version now. So can you tell us a bit more about what that is and what that offers international school music teachers? Sure.
Broadway Teachers Workshop, MTI has been partnering with them for 20 years at this point, I think. It started out very small at NYU with about 12 people, and now we do 4 or 5 sessions with 200 plus people in each session. It's a week of workshops and being in a room with educators and a professional from New York talking about how all of it can work. There's acting workshops, there's producing workshops, there's workshops on, MTI does a workshop on resources and how all that works. So you get a really nice arc of different parts of the process from people that are doing it today in New York City on Broadway, or maybe not so much on Broadway, but there, some people might just be regional people who come in and are doing some great work. And I think it's a great tool. It's great, even if you've been doing this for years. I know teachers that have been teaching musical theater for 10 or 15 years, and they come to Broadway Teachers Workshop and they get so much out of it because it is a hands-on, one-on-one point of view that you can then take and apply to whatever situation you have in back at your school or your theater or wherever you're coming from. It's a wonderful program. I know so many people that have repeated it year after year, even though it sounds like it's going to be the same thing, but remember, every year it's different people. So you're getting different perspectives on all of it. And that's what all this is about. I mean, musical theater is about finding the perspective and how it works best for you and your theater and your space. You mentioned the online version. They introduced that actually during COVID, because we all did. Everyone had to figure out how to make all that work. And the really nice thing is that they kept that part of it also. So, the online stuff is literally watching the master classes online. It's not the same as being there, and we all know that. We all know, online is always going to be a little different, but you still get the essence of what they're teaching and understanding the purpose of why they're teaching it. So the online classes are really wonderful. I strongly recommend, if you can do the in-person. It's invaluable about what you can learn.
And like you said, it's just often the discussions you have with the other teachers where there's so much value.
Yeah, to me, that's the amazing part is, I've always, as you said, I do a lot of workshops. I do a lot of conferences. Teachers tend, just by the nature of what they do, to be their own little island in their own little world. And, you always end up doing this, you always repeat what you did before. You do everything the same way, you do the same process, and that's great. And you found something that works for you. But sometimes you just have a conversation with another teacher who has a slightly different perspective because maybe they have they're not using a proscenium stage. And you guys have a conversation, all of a sudden you're like, well, that process works so much better. Why didn't I think of that? It's a great way to brainstorm and just get outside of your own head and get outside of your own box. Your box, you may be working great within your parameters, but it's always healthy. And I think it's always encouraging to learn from other people who are doing the same thing you do with different challenges.
Yeah, well said. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on something here, John. I'm thinking about an international school music teacher that doesn't have a theater program, and they're kind of toying with the idea. Maybe they've got some students who are interested in it, and they're kind of wondering whether they should do it, like if it's a good thing to actually do for your students. Do you have any thoughts? It's a bit of a philosophical one, if you like. Do you have any thoughts on like why music educators or arts educators should include music theater programs in schools?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on that.
I thought so.
Look at theater, specifically musical theater, because that's the world I'm in. To me, it's so important to the growth of who we are as people and how we fit into our community and how our community is shaped. It gives kids the opportunity to interact. It gives them an opportunity to be dependent on each other. It gives them the opportunity to be empathetic to other people. I could go on, the list can go on, but that's what musical theater does. I would say if you're a teacher and you're not sure whether or not you want to do it or if you can do it, I would say do it. And I think you'll be amazed at how It affects not only the students that are in the show, but the students that are in your school, and how that affects their parents, and how that affects the greater community in where you are. Because I do believe there is a ripple effect to it. And if you haven't experienced that, the first time you do experience that, you're gonna be amazed. I would say, if you're unsure about doing it, give Adam a call. He'll help talk you through about what show is appropriate for you, based on your needs, based on your challenges with your theater, or whatever challenges you have. He's really wonderful about working with you and helping you sort that stuff out. So, my one piece of advice is do it. There's the tools there to do it. You have Broadway Junior. You can start with a 30-minute program with kids, or a 60-minute program with junior. Look, we even have, there's several programs that MTI supports. One of them is a partnership with the Department of Education in New York City. And about 15 years ago, it was MTI, the Schubert Organization, and the Department of Education. We came together and decided to build a program that would build sustainable musical theater programs in underserved schools. We've been doing it for 15 years. It's about 5 to 8 schools per year. That program has now expanded out. We partnered with EDTA, Educational Theater Association, and the program with them is called Jumpstart. And their goal is to go into underserved schools and help them build a sustainable musical theater program. And I have to say, between the DOE and Jumpstart, every school has been successful in their own way. Now, everyone, it depends how I measure success by, did everyone have a good time? Was it a good experience? Are they doing it again? And do they want to do it again? And every one of those schools and every one of those kids are doing it. I have so many great memories of individual moments with some of these schools that I don't know any other way to say it, but it just warms my heart to think about the difference that we're able to make in these young adults' lives, in these kids' lives. Some of them are changed forever, and you see that happen, and it's magical. It just is.
What would you say? You might have already touched on this, so you can kind of repeat some things, I guess. But what would you say would kind of make a sustainable musical theater program in your mind? What were you kind of aiming for to get to that sustainable program?
I mean, again, sustainable is relative, depending on how you look at it. Our goal is to give the teachers the tools to understand how to produce a show. So we have, in these programs, what we do is we take the first weekend, all the teachers come to a space, and we literally do 2 days of intense training of what is musical theater, what's, planes, proximity, what's focus, what is choreography, what is, diction, all of that. Now, they're not going to become experts, but they're at least aware of it, and they understand what their goals are. We also, in these programs, in both Jumpstart and the Schubert DOE program, we actually have teaching artists who are available to these teachers. They check in with them once a week, but they're also available if, a teacher calls and says, I just can't figure out how to stage the flying carpet scene in Aladdin. The teaching artists don't spoon feed them, but they talk them through the process so that the teacher can come up with the idea that fits their situation the best. And how do I measure sustainable? Again, it's just, do they want to do it again?
Yeah.
Do the kids have a good time? Are the parents engaged? Are the parents becoming a part of it? And what does that mean? That means, multiple things. Can they volunteer to help out? Sure. But even if they can show up at the show, That's participation. They're coming there, they're coming into the school. Remember, most schools want parents in the building. This is a great way to get parents in the building for a positive event. They're not coming to see the principal because your kid just skipped class. This is all a positive experience, and it does ripple into the community. You do see a difference, especially around your school. So, do I have an absolute answer? How do I measure it? No, I think it's different for each school. But ultimately, it's if they decide they want to do it again, they had such a good time and it was a positive experience, and they want to do it again. To me, that's success. That's exactly what I am hoping for.
This is why I wanted to get you on the podcast, John, because, some music teachers in international schools might see MTI as that company that we get the shows from. But what you guys actually offer is something really broad, really deep, in terms of what musical theatre is about. It's not just the representative of the authors, which is a very important thing. And it was really good to clarify that role. But you guys offer so much. And I really wanted our listeners to hear that they can reach out to Adam, that there's the Broadway teachers workshop that they might be connected with, even just asking questions of you guys, making a call or jumping on, on email to ask. And that's really exciting because, like you said, we often are all in these little islands on our own. And we often talk in the international school context that's actually a geographical constraint that we have. We're often in these disparate places in the middle of nowhere often. So it's also a geographical island that we sort of find ourselves on, where we're isolated from other schools. So to have this support mechanism with MTI is really exciting. So thanks for sharing all that and taking us kind of on that journey.
Well, thank you. I mean, I truly, this is my life. I love musical theater. I love education. I think, helping a younger generation understand who they are and how they fit into the world is only going to make it better for us in the long run. I always say, it's the teachers that are changing the world because they are supporting these students in every possible way, not just in musical theater, but they are going to change the world because they're giving these young adults, these kids, the tools to be able to understand and cope with who they are, what they need to do, how they take the next step, how to be advocates for themselves. I mean, musical theater is a great way to teach someone how to be an advocate for yourself, which we all need right now. Everyone needs to be an advocate for what they believe in and who they are. So I do, I support teachers in every way I can because they're the ones that are helping change the world, in my opinion.
John, we've covered a lot. There's probably a whole bunch of other rabbit holes we could have gone down. But I think we've really outlined the MTI vision for sure, and some of the products and the ideas that you guys can support international school music teachers with. Is there anything else that you really wanted to share with us that we might not have touched on?
What I want people to understand is exactly what you said earlier. Yes, MTI is this big company in New York City, but we're people. We're humans. We understand, not everyone's situation is the same. We understand that everyone has different challenges. So we listen. That's our job. And, what I always leave everyone with at the end of my workshops and stuff is all this comes down to is communication. Communicate. If you have a question, ask the question. If you are confused, ask the question. If you're unsure, ask the question. That's what we're here for. We're here to answer those questions and help guide you. And the other thing is some people will come in right in and say, I need to do X, Y, and Z. And sometimes, a lot of times, we have to say, I'm sorry, I can't give you permission to do X, Y, and Z, but have you thought about doing A, B, and C? Or E and F? We may not be able to accommodate the needs that you're asking for, but we help you work around it within the rights that we have. That's always our goal, is to never say no. It's always no, but have you thought about? And that's our goal at MTI, is to make sure, we work with you as best we can. Within, again, there are rules and there are, restrictions, and all of that stuff happens, but I think there's always an option. We just got to talk through it. And what does that come down to? It comes down to communicating.
Yeah. I've just thought of one more question, which I think the listeners might be interested in. Is there anything ahead for MTI that would be worth mentioning? Any new things that music teachers might be interested in?
We actually are just launching something called Dramatic Moments.
Ooh.
It is designed for the classroom. Basically, what we do is we have a song that is, right now, they're just solos. We give you the sheet music and the piano tracks for that. We give you the scene that leads into the song. And then the really nice thing is we give you a master class with the authors, and they talk about that specific song, who the character is, why they're singing the song, what has to happen in the song, what happened right before that song, what's going to happen afterwards, so that you as an actor have a full understanding of who the character is singing that song. Now, these are great for classroom use, because you can literally give that song to, if it's a female song, you give it to all the females in the room. If it's a male song, you give it to all the males. You give them the master class. You say, go work on it, and then come back and let's see you perform as that character. The scene that goes along with it is great for your acting one class, where you can just work on it. Everything is digital. We just are launching it now. You don't need an account to purchase any of these. These are literally, you go online. If you have a credit card, you purchase it. They're yours to keep. It's $35 US, and it's a great. We're finding that people are really liking them for their classroom use.
Yeah, great curriculum resource. That's fantastic. I'm glad I asked that question. I can sort of picture people going, oh, I could use that in my musical theatre unit that I've got coming up with year 9 or something. Very good. John, thank you so much for your time. Thanks for giving us your insight. All of the information about, what MTI is, what you offer. I guess clarifying some things too, demystifying some things. I definitely learned a bit along the way. So really appreciate it. We'll add lots of things in the show notes so people have Adam's email address, links to the website, Dramatic Moments. Sounds great. Really appreciate it again, and all the best with the year, the end of the year and what's coming up for you guys. And yeah, I'm just really looking forward to catching up with you again, and maybe we can repeat this down the line, have another chat and see what else is happening, in the coming years.
Absolutely. Yeah. That sounds great. I have a good time, and I love chatting with you, and you make it really easy. So thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Music Teachers in International Schools podcast. Listen to other episodes by visiting mtiis.com, or learn more about our community on Facebook by simply searching for Music Teachers in International Schools. If you know someone who you think I should get on the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at chriskoelma.com, ChrisKoelma.com. See you next time.